people have heard of Krampus. If you haven't, we're going to talk about him today, but there's also a slew of other Yuletide monsters and creatures, and a lot of them are actually more terrifying. So Krampus is this creature that has dark fur, goat horns, and a long snake-like or dragon-like tongue. The word Krampus is thought to come either from the Bavarian word for dead or rotten or the German word for claw. He's kind of a half-goat, half-demon monster whose entire role is to punish bad children. He carries chains, possibly to signify being bound to the devil, and birch sticks that he beats children with, and sometimes a basket that he uses to carry them away if they're really bad. In the 17th century, Krampus started appearing alongside Santa or Saint Nicholas as his helper. We're actually going to look at a couple of other evil Santa helpers in this video from different cultures, because the idea is that he's a saint, he can do good things for good children, but he can't punish the bad children because he's all holy and stuff. So the Krampus-like character exists to threaten the bad children. Like, the good ones get gift, the bad ones get beaten or carried away. Some historians think that Krampus grew out of the Bavarian and Austrian folklore of the Perkta. The Perkta is actually a female creature originally. She was said to roam the countryside between Christmas and Epiphany, those 12 days. And Epiphany, if you're not familiar with it, because it'll be mentioned with some of these other creatures, is usually celebrated around January 5th or January 6th and is supposed to commemorate the Magi or the wise men visiting the Christ child. The Perkta, like another female deity we would talk about, is kind of an early Santa in that she would know whether the children had been good or bad. If they'd been good and worked hard all year, she would leave a silver coin in one of their shoes. But if not, she would slit their bellies open, remove all the guts, and then stuff it full with straw and pebbles. She would also slit people open and stuff them with straw and pebbles if they ate anything other than fish or gruel, the traditional meal on her feast night. Parades and festivals dedicated to the Perkta, or runs called the Perktenlaufen, started around the 16th century, where the Perkta was thought to take two forms, one light and beautiful like a woman and another one like an ugly creature with horns and fur. So the celebration started as people dressed up as the pretty Perkta and the ugly Perkta, and they would fight each other with like sticks and stuff. Up until the 19th century, this was done by women, and a lot of records show that they would often wear masks but leave both breasts or one breast out as part of the ceremony, and they didn't feel ashamed to do that because like their faces were covered, and leave their hair down, which was also wild. But slowly it became less female Perkta, and young men started taking on this role, and it changed and sort of merged with the new idea of Krampus. You may have seen footage of Krampus runs or Krampus Nacht or Perkenlaufen. They're kind of combined together in the Alpine regions. This is footage from a Krampus/Perkta run in Salzburg. It's a parade that's usually around the winter solstice, where they dress up and they go around and playfully swat people with birch sticks. You're supposed to offer fruity schnapps to them, and like this guy here takes a picture and then carries her away and swats her. However, Krampus is not the only scary Christmas creature who helps Saint Nicholas. There's also Père Fouettard in French. I might be saying that wrong. It means father whipper. If you watched my last video about Saint Nicholas, one of the stories in the folklore is that he saved these three boys who got chopped up by a butcher and pickled in a pickle jar, and he brought them back to life. Barrel, not jar. Legend holds that innkeeper who butchered them is Father Whipper, Père Fouettard, and that he repented, and now as part of his repentance, he travels around with Saint Nicholas, and he's the one who kidnaps the kids or whips them. He also has chains like Krampus, and people dress up as him and carry around birch sticks and like threaten to, hit the kids who are bad. The Dutch counterpart is Zwart or Black Peter. Similar story and kind of problematic history, obviously. This is apparently more how they dress up as Black Peter today. He carries willow branches and spanks children who are naughty, and comes with St. Nicholas, same deal as Father Whipper and Krampus. In this instance, St. Nicholas is Sinterklaas, and a lot of people think the whole dark companion, sooty Pete thing came way back from like Odin. In the Wild Hunt, Odin would fly through the air with two black raven helpers. They would go to chimneys and look down and report back to Odin about what kids were being good or bad. Medieval iconography, St. Nicholas is often accompanied by a chained black demon. In the case of Black Peter, this developed into the idea of a black Moorish servant of St. Nicholas, which is how it became people dressing up in blackface with like curly wigs and red lipstick in the Renaissance period, but has since been changed to people just putting soot on their face and being sooty Pete, thankfully. Moving on to more scary Christmas creatures, we've got Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga exists in tons of Slavic folklore. She is a forest creature that is sometimes 3 women in one, but sometimes just one, and she flies around in a mortar with a pestle, like ancient women who used to like grind herbs to do magic. Definitely comes from the dark mother goddess pagan past, as well as ancient pagan wise women before they were turned into witches. Oh, and her house stands on chicken legs and can move around. She's not good, but she's not evil. Yes, she eats people, she decorates her fences with their skulls, but she can also help people who serve her and grant wishes, and she basically is like nature itself. Only recently has she been really linked with Christmas, mostly as stealing the presents of bad children. Sometimes she's also painted as the enemy of Father Frost or Morozko / Jack Frost, which I talk about in another video. We've also got a terrifying ogress from Iceland. Grilla or Gryla is also a cannibal and boils and eats naughty children, and she's got 13 sons called the 13 Yule Lads and a giant black cat called the Christmas Cat. It prowls the countryside and eats anyone who didn't receive new clothing for Christmas. Her 13 sons, the Yule Lads, each have a description that describes the way they harass people, and they come down the 13 days leading up to Yule. They leave gifts in the shoes that children leave on windowsills, but if the children have been bad, they get like a rotten potato or rotten vegetables in their shoe instead, which is way worse than coal if you ask me. Coal's useful, actually. Now in Italy, there's a nice Christmas witch called La Befana. She is mostly associated with Epiphany, and even though she is described as hideously ugly and rides a broom and all those witch things, she's absolutely good. Like the American Santa, she delivers presents to kids who have been good and coal to kids who've been bad. There's a pagan theory of where she came from and a Christian one like usual. The pagan one is that she came from an old goddess, that it really wasn't Befana but Bastrina, and it came from a goddess called Strenia. The Christian story is that when the 3 magi were looking for Jesus, they asked her for directions, but she didn't know. Then after they left, she like wanted to follow them and find them and flew around trying to find Jesus, but never found him. And that's why she gives gifts to other children that she can find. Denmark and Sweden, we've got the Nissa and the Tomt, which are both basically gnomes. They live around homes and help with chores in the stable and the household, and you're supposed to give them porridge once a year on the winter solstice, and they sometimes leave gifts as well in those cultures. Of course, if you don't honor them or leave them gifts you're supposed to leave them, then they can do harm too. They can play tricks, harm livestock, hide things. Like a lot of pre-Christian folklore creatures, they're not good or evil. They just can do good or bad depending on how you treat them. Kind of like people. The last one's not a creature, but I just have to talk about the poop log from Catalonia, a region of Spain. Sometimes called Tio de Nadal or Caga Tio. Now, I don't speak Spanish, but I knew Tio meant uncle, and Caga was kind of like caca, so I was like, poo log? But then I looked it up again. I think this is a more accurate translation. This is apparently a very versatile curse word, but you could also say Tio de Nadal is Christmas log. Anyway, what you do with this log is you dress it up and you put a little face on it and you feed it throughout the times leading up to the holidays. Leave it oranges at night like you would leave cookies and milk for Santa. Then on Christmas Eve, you get out sticks and you beat it like a piñata, and then the kids leave the room and the blanket's taken off, and when they come back, it has pooped out candy. Traditionally Turon, which is a kind of nougat made from egg whites and sugar and almonds. I just had to count this as a creature because it's a sentient pooping log. It's so cute. Hope you enjoyed hearing about these Yuletide monsters and creatures. I talk about them and the folklore of St. Nicholas in the most recent episode of my podcast, Folk Tales and Fairy Lore. Check out my book, Dust Spells, which is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, a traditional Grimm fairy tale. Be good, or Krampus is gonna get you. Or the Perk is gonna rip out your guts and fill you with straw. Still think that's the scariest.